Welcome to Does It Make a Sound, the podcast where we ask, if an indie band pours their heart and soul into making a record, but nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I'm your host, Dustin Owens, and joining me today are my Fall Down Trees bandmates and partners in rhyme, Porkchop Branch and Nolin McAlister. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. The fellers are good.
The fellers.
I think fellers is my favorite.
In the first season of Does It Make a Sound, we're going to go through our debut album, Night Terrors, episode by episode. And what you're here for right now is episode 2, the title track, Night Terrors. If you haven't listened to episode 1, Hand of God, we recommend starting there. So it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and skip back, listen to episode 1, and then roll into this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to Does It Make a Sound. Do it right now. Like, just do it. Don't put it off. Don't wait. You're going to love it, so you might as well just do it. Go ahead and give us 5 stars. Go listen to Night Terrors as well. It's going to be... you don't have to do that right now if you don't want to, but we would recommend listening to it as soon as possible. And this show is giving context into what you're going to be hearing. But Night Terrors was recorded and sort of meant to be listened to as a whole and as a piece. So give that a try. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal. It's at all the places. So go check out Night Terrors right now, the debut album from Fall Down Trees. And make sure to follow Fall Down Trees on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're on all the places there too. We are proud partners of Guttersville Records, a collective of independent artists and musicians, and make sure to go find us on the social medias and follow and like and do all of those things for Guttersville too. And all of the links for all of the things that I'm sitting here babbling on about are going to be in the show notes. So just go check it out, follow the links. We try to make it as easy for you as we possibly can. And if you'd like to contact us, you can do so through the social media platforms. You can also send an email, if people still do that, to falldowntrees@gmail.com. So, Night Terrors, this is the title track of the album. But we did kind of wonder if we could pull this off as a 3-piece band, and especially without a drummer. This is, I guess this would be the heaviest song on the record. I mean, so. The Setting Sun would probably compete, but it's just really dark. I don't know that it is as heavy as Night Terrors is. If this wasn't on the record, so if we decided we couldn't do this, the album was actually going to be called A Work Grotesque. So I think that's a pretty good album title too.
Yeah.
And
I think it kicks ass.
Yeah, if you go back through like all of the notes that I've taken for years and the different ways that I've planned it, A Work Grotesque is an album title that I've kind of hung on to for a long time. So, but I think when it came down to the theme that we finally settled on for this record, Night Terrors was probably about as good as we could have asked for. I did go back through, so I mentioned this in the last episode. I haven't always kept meticulous notes when it comes to like demos and stuff like that, and when I wrote a song or anything like that. And a lot of times that's fluid, right? Like, you know, it may take me years to finish writing a tune. So what I can do is I can go back and I can look at a lot of these songs and see like when I recorded the voice memo. But then I did this really dumb thing at several points in my life where I took all of my voice memos and dumped them on my computer to save them and clear up space on my phone. And when I did that, the created dates all changed to the date that I dumped them on my computer. So I don't actually know when a lot of this stuff was recorded. For this one, I can confirm at the very least that it was written sometime before May of 2018. I would imagine it's earlier than May of 2018 because in May of 2018 we were starting to play the song live. But I do think that we took this song pretty quickly from a song that I wrote and turned it into a live song because we were working at that point in time with a band. So we had a drummer, and this would have been a fun song to like bring in immediately and just rock out on. So Night Terrors. There is a little family history with this. So Night Terrors are a real thing. I don't know how familiar y'all are with them, but it is a step beyond a nightmare. It's almost like a panic attack in your sleep. Actually, I think it might be a panic attack in your sleep. My grandma had them when I was a kid, and it used to terrify me. I would wake up in the middle of the night and she would just be like these blood-curdling screams from the bedroom down the hall. And you would go in there and wake her up and she would be shaking and quivering. And It was really intense, and I think it was sometime after puberty when I started to have them. When I was much younger and had less stressors in life, I didn't have them quite as often. I haven't had one in a long time, but it is something that I have struggled with through the years, especially in the most difficult times of my life. And so, essentially what it is it's a very vivid nightmare where either I am doing something really horrible or something really horrible is being done to me, and I am helpless in like protecting myself. So one of the recurring themes that I have is like I'll be trying to fight back, and my arms are like noodle arms, and I can't do anything.
Yeah, I
but
know that feel.
Usually what happens is I wake up and I am yelling out, and somebody's waking me up because I am very vocally yelling out in my sleep. And a lot of times it takes me a couple of days to get over it. So I'll be kind of shaky and feel weird for a couple of days after that happened. So this song actually came out of that. And stressors like in life are a thing that'll trigger these. And the most intense time in my life that I've had them was actually kind of right after the 2016 presidential election. And Towns was born in September of 2017. And at this point in time, like I've got 2 kids. There's a lot of like upheaval in my job going on. But also upheaval in the world, right? Like this is Tiki Torch's time. This is we're about to get exploded by nuclear weapons time. But kind of the biggest thing that's like happening here, and it's really similar to where we are right now, is just people hate each other, and there's not like any level of empathy or compassion for people that think differently or come from a different place than you are, and that is not a partisan thing. Like that is pretty much across the board, and it seems to be the era of the world that we're currently living in. I think some of it is the fact that we can hide behind screens and pass judgment. It's like road rage. You behave in a way that you never would if you had to look a person in the face and have those conversations with them.
Exactly.
But that is a thing that still weighs on me today. The difference in 2016 is I kept up a lot with politics, and it was a thing that was just ever present all day, every day in my life. And that sort of existential dread really started to weigh on me around this time. So when I wrote this song, I woke up in the middle of the night screaming. And my ex-wife like wakes me up, and the kids are all awake, and like I woke the whole house up. The dog's barking, and I'm just like blood-curdling screams. And I go outside, and I'm just like quivering. And I sat down, and I had a little notebook next to my chair and a pen where I would write and take notes on things. That was like my spot outside where I would sit in my carport, and I just started to write. And I wrote page after page after page, and none of it had any sort of like meter or rhyme or any, it was just stream of consciousness, like what was inside of me and like what I was dealing with. And I just, the way it was all coming out of me in that night terror, I let it all come out of the pen sitting there, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. And then I sat it down, and I went back inside, and I went to sleep, and I didn't think about it. And so after that point, I sat down and I started looking at it, and a lot of it didn't make any sense, but there were all of these little nuggets that were in there that did make a lot of sense, and that were really heavy. And one of the things that I had said in there is we're falling out of love with everything.
Yep.
And once again, I think that is a very like I was gonna say prescient, but I'm not sure I know what that word means.
That's one of my favorite lines of pretty much any song we've done. That falling out of love with everything. It rings true.
Yeah, you can feel that, right?
Yeah.
And so
everybody's been through that.
As I'm like sitting down and I'm writing, I have this guitar riff or a variety of riffs or this idea for a riff in my head, and I'm like trying to come up with the meter that the song's going to follow, and then I'm pulling stuff out of the stream of consciousness and trying to work it and fit it into that meter. So one cool thing that I found when I was going back through and like looking at old voice notes and stuff for this is what I call a test. And so I have like different names for the voice notes when they go in there. And so a test is the first phase of writing a song. Mm-hmm. And so that is when I'm literally testing to be able to listen to what I just did to play it back and see if it's any good. And so, and it lets me like play. So I think this voice note was like 14 minutes long.
Jeez.
And we'll play the whole thing right now. So buckle up. Just kidding. So I just play over and over. I might sing the same line over and over. I adjust the melody. I adjust like the meter of the song. Thanks, Arlo's here. You can hear him barking in the background. I adjust all of these things until I find something that works. And then the next thing is a sketch where I'm still working through the lyrics, but all in all, I kind of have an arrangement. And then the final thing is a demo, which is what I think the completed song is going to be. It's just that kind of like solo version of it. And a lot of times, even those demos are the night that I wrote the song. So this is the test. And you're going to hear me like in real time, like writing this song. So let's go ahead and play it for you.
Charlie Pattinson me the blues. I can't keep the needle in the groove. And ice cream and a pack of smoke. Louis C.K. brings my heart with a joke. The dick I wanna swallow and choke. Falling out of love with everything. Falling out of love.
So you hear like the riff from the song that ends up being the main riff was actually like a musical intro going into the next verse. And the da 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 was there from the beginning, which surprised me. I figured that was a thing
You came
I
up
came
with
up
that
with later.
like that fast?
Immediately. Yeah, I guess that was like a big part of the song.
Yeah, that guitar part is sick.
And so, yeah, and once again, the 14-minute voice note, like you'll hear me play different versions of that and change it and try it in different ways. But it is kind of cool to listen. Like, I'm sure sitting there listening to that test the first time, I'm like pulling my hair out, like all of this really sucks. But to know, like you said, there's little nuggets in there that ended up really being the core of the song.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was, just like the lyrics, as I went in and just pulled the bits out that I thought were good and like made a tune out of it.
It's amazing, but every song is so different. There's some songs that, like the last song, the first song that we talked about on the podcast.
Hand of God.
Yeah. I was absolutely getting ready to say. I was just saying the difference is that song sounded so different from the inception until the completion.
Mm-hmm.
This, even though it gets polished up, I mean, you have found you have mined a gem. You just hadn't put it in the tumbler yet.
That's right. Yeah, it was going to be a rock song from the beginning.
Right.
There was no like genre shifting when I wrote this one. Like this is what I felt like needed to be the music behind the lyrics that I had, and I think that was a good call. So it's kind of a good view into my process of writing songs too. One of the questions people ask me a lot, and I think it's a really cool question, and I listen to a lot of podcasts where they talk to songwriters about writing songs, and it's like, what's your process, And some people start with lyrics and then create a melody and music later. Some people start with a melody and music and do lyrics later. There are all these different ways that you can go about it, and I kind of do all of the things at once, which I think is probably in truth how most people end up doing it. But there are differences, and we'll talk about it in the songs on this album in ways that I write. And usually the way it goes is the more complicated the music is, the more simple. That means I wrote the music first and the lyrics came later. Mm-hmm. And the more complicated the lyrics are and simple the music, that probably means I came up with the lyrics first and wrote the music later. And so with this one, though, it's all kind of happening at one time. I had a whole bunch of words that I knew I could do a thing out of, and I kind of had like several half guitar riffs that are all kind of put together, and then I'm trying to figure out how to create a melody as I'm sort of changing these riffs. And so you can hear parts of the melody in that little clip too, that will fully form once the actual music falls underneath them. The tendency would have been to just kind of rap it out and sing it flat, but you can hear me like pushing into different places and searching for different notes melodically. Another interesting thing that I found with this is I did go back. Now, I did not find the notebook that has all of this stuff in it, and it's probably in my storage unit, in a box somewhere at the bottom of something that I'll find, or my kids will find one day and realize that I was insane. But I did find an early version of this song that I had typed out like actual lyrics to, and some of the lyrics were what you were just hearing in that cut. So here's one of the verses. A pint of ice cream and a pack of smokes. Louis C.K. breaks my heart with a joke. I'd changed the channel, but I can't find the remote. The truth's so thick, I try to swallow and choke.
Was that around the time, that scandal?
I have no idea. I would almost think it would have to be before the scandal, right? Louis C.K. was always one of my top comedians, and one of the things that he could always do was like make you laugh and cry at the same time.
Yeah, his show did that. I don't know if you ever watched his
Louis?
TV show. Yeah, Louis.
Absolutely.
It was funny as hell, but
it tugged at your heartstrings too. And so I have to think because he disappeared after the scandal, and I would have to think that this was still when he was kind of like out doing some stuff regularly. And then here's another lyric. I shave my beard and I cut off my hair. Who wants to die just to fight a bear? I'll take a cupboard underneath the stairs, a Dursley's version of polite and fair. So I had a Louis C.K. line and a Harry Potter lyric.
Harry Potter, yeah.
I have no idea why I thought that was a good idea. I'm really glad that I cut those. I don't think either one of them is particularly good. The Harry Potter one, though, I shaved my beard and I cut off my hair. Who wants to die just to fight a bear? I used to have a joke when I was much younger, like that I had this dream of dying fighting a bear. Like that's, when I say dream, not like a night terror, like a goal. Like that was the way.
You wrote a song about it.
Did I? Fighting a bear? Oh, I did. Yeah, The Farmer's Daughter.
The Farmer's Daughter.
Absolutely. That's a great song. I mean, look, it's a win-win situation. Like if you beat the bear, everybody's going to talk about you forever and ever because you defeated a bear.
Yeah.
But if you lose...
Well, it's a bear.
Yeah, like obviously you lost, but you were brave enough to face it, right? All right, so I found this demo too. So this is like the first, like where the song is kind of fully realized, and you'll hear the rhythm of the tune and the guitar. But there are some slight variations. So this is the Night Terrors demo that was probably done. It showed the same date as the other one, the day that I put them all on the computer, but I think they were probably done pretty close together.
Catapult my phone out in the street. I kick the dog that tangles up my feet. I beat a man that used to wear a sheet. Self-righteous fury leads to moral defeat. I've fallen out of love with everything. Falling out of love with everything. Falling out of love with everything. Everything but you.
I really nailed that last part there, didn't I? So one thing, to note, like in the chorus, like it slows way down
dramatic.
in the chorus.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I do
I'd
too.
imagine we tried to do that live, and it's just really hard to pull off. And yeah, like on the final record, we got the click track going, so there's no tempo change for that part at all. Yeah. Not saying that there aren't plenty of tempo changes on the record. We figured out a way around that, but not on this song. But yeah, that was one thing that stood out as how slow I wanted that part to be, like early on. Another thing to note here is how this sort of fits into the concept of the record as a whole, and it's really, if you think about, Hand of God is like an intro song and Pegasus is like an outro. They almost don't belong to the core of the record because they're transitional songs. And they both have the harmonica, which I think I've got in my notes here to talk about in a little bit. So
I've literally seen people jump
going from one to the other, right?
So, this is a very nice song.
So smooth and laid back.
Then this song kicks in.
Right. And so Night Terrors is really the proper introduction of the meat of the album. That's the part where I am in the shed. Our protagonist, our main character, is like in the shed, and he's dealing with like this King Midas in reverse, right? Everything I touch turns to shit. He even tries to play his Charlie Patton record and the needle won't. And look, that's a thing that happened. Like if fuzz gets in the grooves of your record, the needle will hop and skip. And I've got this beautiful Charlie Patton Third Man Records pressing on 180 gram vinyl. And when I first got it, like I was having all kinds of issues because I had the bass turned up too high. And when he would hit his like low vocal notes, it would cause that needle to jump around, and it just really frustrated me. That's when my turntable sat on top of my speakers. Now that I'm I'm smart enough to have the speakers away from the turntable. That doesn't happen anymore. Also, you'll notice in that demo, or you may have, it is I've fallen out of love with everything. Whereas on the record, that actually broadened, and it is we're falling out of love with everything.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
So you, everything but you is kind of a placeholder in this instance. And even in my notes, like I wrote little stories about all of the songs and how they fit into the concept. And a lot of these songs revolve around you. And so in this song, it may be not you in particular, but you with quotation marks around it, right? This placeholder. No matter what you're writing about at the moment that you're writing, the person listening and the person singing, like those things can change. And a ton of most of these songs weren't written about the time that they ended up being about, right? And this is an example of that too. One of the things in this song and on a lot of this record is I use the second person. So, first person is I'm writing a song about me. And third person is I'm writing a story about somebody else. And then second person is I'm writing a song about you. And so from a singing perspective, if I'm singing to you that I'm singing to can change over time.
Oh, yeah.
But from a listener perspective, it sounds like the song is being sung to you, right?
And the you can be whatever you want.
Whatever you want it to be.
Whatever you feel. Because like when I hear falling out of love with everything but you, it can mean a person, a thing.
Yeah, when I hear the song, even now, even hearing the explanation, I think of a person.
Yeah.
I put myself in the role of the person singing, even though I'm not singing.
And I
that's
think
just the way it
works in your head.
Yeah.
And me, I think of music because music has saved my life multiple times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this time included. That's why we made this record. That was why it was so important to me in particular to make this record when I did, is because I was like everything was falling apart around me. And there was this one thing that not only made me feel better, but built my confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That like, let me say, I am a person of value because I can do a thing that most people cannot do.
That's exactly the same attitude. I used to put like little videos and stuff of me, doodling around on saxophone, which not a lot of people can do.
Right.
And it's not a hard thing to do once you learn. It's like, hey, this guy's not so stupid looking. He can do a thing I can't do.
How many incredible musicians, if they didn't have that one thing, like Patterson Hood from the Drive-By Truckers talks about that a lot, is like, he was never any good at anything ever in his entire life. Like
exactly.
He would be lucky to have a job, working at a gas station or whatever if he wasn't a full-time musician, and probably wouldn't have been able to hold on to anything for any amount of time. I think we all kind of feel that way. All right, so when I wrote this song, we had a band with a drummer. I mentioned that, and so that's this is one of the few songs on the record that really got worked out live before we recorded it. So there wasn't a lot of like composition for this song in the studio. We had bass lines and all of that already down. The riff didn't really change, but the way that we arranged the song, and we were definitely able to be creative with it. It just wasn't necessarily in a songwriting way. So we had a band called the First Amendment, and it would probably been around this point in time. I couldn't find anything that said the First Amendment played this song. So the reason that we kind of shifted from First Amendment to Woolly Boogers, which was sort of a repurposed band name that we had used a little bit. I don't even think we ever played a gig with the first version of Woolly Boogers. But The Adventures of Dustin Owens and the First Amendment was kind of a joke when we came up with that. So we were called Dustin Owens and the First Amendment.
Dude, when we played a gig, right? And the dude was like, "What's your band name?" And I got like halfway through. He's like, "That's too long."
That's very true. But I've always kind of written songs that tested the boundaries of things that you should be writing songs about, and have the tendency to piss people off from time to time. And so I thought that was a good way of doing it. But obviously, once again, like societal shifts, there was a lot of people throwing around the First Amendment in a way that wasn't really representative of how we felt about it, like the right to free speech versus the right to be, an asshole. And then the other thing was the logo. So we used the Gadsden flag. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
The snake.
Yeah.
That was kind of our logo. And so a lot of people got thought that we were making a much bigger political statement than we really were. And so we didn't. That wasn't how we wanted to be. We're not a political. We are a political band in the sense of like
freedom,
a true populist like outlook. Like, we are a band of the people. We are poor people. That is what we are. And so we write from the perspective of poor people, and we're also empathetic people towards everybody in the world. And so, like, in that way, there are political elements in our songs, but none of us are partisan, like in any way at all, and we don't want to be associated with that in any way. So we moved away from the First Amendment. We moved to Woolly Boogers. We did have some heavier, like, cover songs that we played, but most of them were sort of like blues rock. Good Morning Schoolgirl and Rolling Stone. Like, we played hard, but we weren't playing like heavy music necessarily. And so I would imagine that this came in not only as our heaviest original, but probably the heaviest song on our set list.
Yeah.
I think so.
Schoolgirl, I didn't know that wasn't your song for about 5 years.
Oh, yeah. We ought to bring that one back sometime. So I'm going to play a track here. This is from the Woolly Boogers. Matt Myers is the drummer on this.
Love you, Matt.
Love you, Matt. Miss you, buddy. He had to move away at some point, which is was the end of the Woolly Boogers band, I guess, at that point in time. And
Got to send me a BMX bike.
yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit down the road. Yeah, it's good to see Matt out riding around all the time. But so with this version of the band, I'm going to be coming in with an acoustic guitar with a distortion pedal. So that was sort of a trademark of the First Amendment and Woolly Boogers bands, is I didn't often break out the electric guitar, especially in the later phases. I carried that acoustic and I would kick that distortion on and make it scream. So the idea of that sort of drama of the slow, quiet song leading into the fast, heavy song, just like Hand to God into Night Terrors, that's a thing that I've really enjoyed for a long time. And so Night Terrors has often been the number 2 song on set lists and things like that, and it's no surprise that is where it eventually ended up. I moved it around and tried it in different places on the record, but that's where it ended up landing.
Usually the second song's the best, right?
Yeah, well, the second person always gets bit by the snake.
Yeah,
so I think that might have something
Which was
to do
on our
with it.
T-shirts.
Yeah.
That's right.
the
So
lazy mouse gets the cheese.
the lazy mouse gets the cheese. So live from Red Arrow Studio. So we went up to Red Arrow Studio in Seneca and did a live performance. They broadcasted on the
Shout out
internet.
Cliff.
Yeah, we really appreciated that. That was a ton of fun. This was June 21st of 2018. And so what we did is we played our song The Storyteller was our opening tune, and then we went from Storyteller into Night Terrors. And we did sound check with the distortion pedal and without, but I think we still might have caught a few people off guard. So
Yeah, my sax squeaked.
all right, let's go ahead and dive into this. Woolly Boogers at Red Arrow Studio.
Don't try to guess my intentions, just pay heed to the words that I say. Blues don't know me like it used to do. I can't stand to watch the evening news. Charlie Patton singing me the blues. Can't keep the needle seated in the groove. Catapult my phone out in the street.
All right, so Woolly Boogers playing Night Terrors from live at Red Arrow Studio. The bowed upright bass
Oh,
there,
God,
Porkchop.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, we hadn't done that in a long time either. We didn't, we thought about and toyed with the idea on this record of being the upright because
Yeah.
us as a band, traditionally, I've played an acoustic guitar and Porkchop has played an upright bass when we play live shows. And so it is kind of interesting when we got in here and started doing this album, how much we, just for the simplicity of recording, at first, and then figuring out the complexity of the bass lines and being able to use the bass as a textural instrument, we really leaned on that electric bass and ended up using that for the whole record. But that bowed bass, that'll need to come back around, and that's not always going to be the case when we record. As a matter of fact, the Christmas EP, there was some great upright bass playing on that.
You know, the that version of that song, I'm playing upright on that on Night Terrors.
The whole gig.
The whole gig is with an upright bass, and it's kind of weird. When I heard it, I was like, "Why? That's the upright," because everything we've done on this album has been electric.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine that one wasn't a lot of fun on the upright.
Oh, you know, it's fun to play. You just it wears you out.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a lot of movement.
It's a workout.
So we got a couple of comments after we played that gig. One is that no two songs sounded alike stylistically, and that is a thing that we take a lot of pride in. I think as an Americana band, we really try to dip our toes in every element of Americana. There's some we haven't quite got there to yet. A lot of times Americana is just a name for, you know, I don't know, young people country music or country music they don't play on the radio. Yeah, I don't know. But to us, like, it really is all styles of American music.
It's a large umbrella.
I think Willie Nelson is probably like the best representative of that. And you think of his jazz influence, his blues influence, his flamenco, like Latin influences in his music. Like, it's so broad ranging, and even, you know, the Great American Songbook, like what he incorporates into his music. But for us, like, that extends to, you know, New York, like new wave or punk, like, you know, early era Ramones-esque punk, or maybe the Stooges, right? And the heavy rock with the saxophone in there, like on Funhouse. Like, it's so much more than just what people have in their head. It's all of these American styles. The other comment that we got was that I was the sweatiest person they'd ever seen in the studio. I sweated through my shirt so bad playing that show that when I went to take it off afterwards, it ripped. Like, it ripped in my hands because it was sweaty and stuck to me. And like,
do you remember going to McDonald's and the old lady thought we were like the OJs?
No, really?
They thought we were like
somebody serious?
Yeah, because we all had like black shirts on,
all dressed up nice.
It's like, oh, yo, you're in a band. I was like, yeah, actually we are.
We are. Another thing is we used to play this song really fast. That was a way that we always, like, and when I was talking about like that sort of Ramones, like New York CBGB punk scene, like, that was a lot of what I was trying to get to in this song. But we ended up, like, on the final record, like, we slowed it down and let it drive. And I think that really works well. Definitely a White Stripes influence on this song. And then I got to give a shout out to Nate, Guttersville Records, Chroma Combs. He's got a new record out, but he used to have this song called Dry Spell, and it had this great riff, and you know, it was about ending his dry spell, and I loved it every time I heard him play it. And so I finally figured out how to play it, how to play that sort of like moving power chord. And so I learned how to play that style of music covering one of Nate's tunes, and we covered it in our band. I don't think he knew we were going to cover it the first night we played it, so he's like at our show and we broke out one of his songs. I always thought that was about as high of a compliment as you could pay somebody. I would love that if somebody one day did that for me. Up to this point, it has not happened, but maybe one day.
Yeah, you can pull a saxophone out your ass and...
yeah, maybe, Nolan. That's not where I would keep my saxophone if it was me. But. All right, so we were gigging during 2018 and doing a good bit of it, it looked like. And there were some gigs where our regular band, which was me, Porkchop, Nolin, and Matt, weren't able to play, so we had some other musicians fill in. Night Terrors was always a staple of the live show, and so because of that, I have some different recordings with some different people playing along too, who obviously, like, brought their own thing to that song, and probably had some sort of influence on where it ended up going down the road. So the first one here is good buddy Scott Glenn, an incredible drummer. Scott and I have played together for ages and ages. We approach music from different ways, even though a lot of what we really enjoy is kind of in line. But you're going to hear a definite stylistic shift. So this is from May of 2018, playing with Scott.
I love everything.
So Scott, adding a lot to that song right now.
I feel like I'm gonna get fired after hearing that.
So the thing with Scott is like the music that he's into and the way that he thinks about and looks and I want to give a shout out to Sacred Heartbeats. That's Scott's organization now, where he goes around to different places and uses drums as a tool for healing, and it's really sort of a beautiful thing. And Scott is like we've been very clear about this. We do not like drummers. We do not believe that they're real musicians. But Scott's about as close to a musician as a drummer's going to get. And he'll talk rhythmic theory with you in a way that's way over my head, just like when Nolin talks music theory to me and it's way over my head. So he's doing things there that nobody else has ever brought to that song. I think one thing, though, when I listen to that it reminds me of is the Then Play On album from Fleetwood Mac. So this is like pre-Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac. This is Peter Green's era, and that Then Play On record sort of has this vibe to it that's very dark, these sort of heavy blues-based like guitar parts, but the rhythms are what really stand out to me. And I think that Scott and I were actually talking about that album, and that might have been the approach that he was taking to play in that song. Another one of the gigs, Porkchop wasn't available, so we had our friend Trev Furlong come and sit in with us. This would have been in October of 2018.
The good old UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's not stateside with us anymore, though we do still. He criticizes our spelling and grammar on our Facebook page, so I don't know what we would do without you, Trev.
Yeah.
The part that I'm going to play from Trev is actually what we did when we played with him, is because he was filling in for one show. We decided one of the best things that we could do, instead of having to learn 30 songs, is we could learn 22 songs and then stretch a bunch of them out. So this is a jam that we went into at the end of Night Terrors. So the song ended, and then we took the riff like into space at the end. So I thought it was pretty cool. So here from October of 2018 is Night Terrors jam with Trev. So one thing that I thought was really cool about that is it's a guitar solo. That is a thing that we did not do on Night Terrors. And one of the reasons is because there's only one guitar player in the band, and that's the riff and the meat of the tune. So usually when we played Night Terrors live, the sax did all of the solo work. Trev, his background, so he came up, he grew up in England, and going to like early English punk shows. He told me a great story about sneaking in to see The Damned when he was I think it was The Damned when he was 15 years old, like at this club. And so he's so much fun to talk music with. Trev's also big into British prog rock, and so him like letting me go off into space, like that kind of felt natural to him, to be able to fill in those gaps like on the bass and carry that. Once again, that lead guitar is an acoustic guitar with a distortion pedal.
One of the things I'll say is, and I haven't looked into this, but I think they teach different notes on the bass in the UK than
you think
here.
so?
Yeah, because I never learned those notes.
All those notes.
And I mean, he's an amazing bass player.
He's incredibly
They
good.
don't teach those notes in the mountains of Appalachia.
No.
And stylistically broad. Like he can play absolutely anything.
Anything.
So one of the reasons we didn't play these guitar solos is because if I'm playing this riff and then all of a sudden I stop playing this riff, and this is thanks, Nolin. This is the case with a lot of songs, like when we were trying to approach it as a 3-piece band, when you stop playing that riff, the energy of the tune drops.
Yeah.
And so that was a thing we thought of as a bad thing most of the time. But in the final recording of this song, we actually do that intentionally. So the guitar on the album, the guitar solo, I removed the rhythm guitar that's behind the solo. And the only guitar that's coming through is the lead guitar. And it does bring the energy of the song down, but it makes the tension of the solo really, really stand out. And another thing is, like, I'm playing kind of, so my natural fallback on lead guitar is a blues scale. That's what I do. I think that's where most of us like started. And I can get a little more complex. I can play a harmonic minor scale if I want to make it sound a little more complicated. It's not a harmonic minor scale.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You
All
got-
right.
you got it.
Nolan has to correct me sometimes.
They're talking shop.
No, you got it right.
But one of the things, like, on this song that I did, and I'm doing it in that jam, but I also bring it in to the final recording, is adding some of that like harmonic minor, and then also like some chromatic guitar runs, being like notes that aren't in order but not necessarily in the scale. And that's like a Mark Ribot influence from Tom Waits's guitar player, and Lounge Lizards and so much else. Mark Ribot is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. But one of the things about this song that we always tried to do is we tried to make it weird and we tried to make it uncomfortable. We wanted tension in that song. And so you hear Nolin over time in his sax playing, how he kind of builds off of that, and my guitar playing builds off of that. And those are elements that we kept adding all the way to the final recording of the tune. After the Woolly Boogers dissolved, we formed Fall Down Trees kind of as an acoustic band. And so Night Terrors fell out of the set list. Like at that point in time, we weren't going to be doing much with that.
Can't really do that live.
So
with 3 people.
Yeah, and that, at that point it was 2 acoustic guitars and an upright bass. Sometimes we'd throw a mandolin in there. And so our other guitar player, Bradley, I hope he's doing fantastic. We love Bradley too.
Hey, Bradley.
Started the Fall Down Trees with us. Bradley had to take off and go a different direction, and so we called Nolin up and brought Nolin back in, and we kind of turned Fall Down Trees back into a Woolly Boogers type band. And we brought in Scott's son, Jonah, who is a fantastic drummer in his own right, to come in and play drums with us. And Night Terrors reappeared back in our set list. So I'm going to play another live version of the song. This is from Bruise on the Square in Pendleton.
Oh, yeah.
And this is from October of 2023. So this is I mean, it may be the last time we played the song live, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think it is.
And so, yeah, we were, let's see here. One thing to pay attention to in this recording, Porkchop's backing vocals. So that is a thing that you kind of have worked on over time, and obviously we got a lot better at it on this record and figured it out. But even beforehand, you were doing this backing vocal approach, and so you hear Chop's backing vocals, and then Nolin just absolutely freaks out on the saxophone.
Oh.
Jonah got his drum fill in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty sexy drum fill. I kind of like it.
Well, you know, and you can definitely hear the difference between him and his dad and their stylistic approach to the music. You know, Jonah comes from like a heavier music background than Scott does, and he brought that to the table. One thing that we should say is that was at the Pendleton Fall Festival. It was in the middle of the day, and we were set up in front of a coffee shop with children playing in front of us on the ground.
I was thinking about that while the recording was playing. I don't want to speak over it, but it's like sometimes when I freak out like that, like live, it's because people aren't paying attention.
That's exactly right. It's like, look at us. Here we go.
It's like, shut up. I'm doing something.
It's hard not to look when something like that's coming at you.
I know the latte is good, but listen to this.
Bro, them things had me tweaking on the way home.
Yeah, that was intense. I think Sarah made them for a special. All right. So we've kind of told this story already. After Jonah left the band, we decided to move forward as a 3-piece, and that was when we started working on the record. So when I recorded the official demo, it would have been around this time, right before this time, right after this time, something like that. One of the things, and this is one of the reasons we didn't know if it was going to make it on the record, is it sounds so thin without rhythm behind it. And as heavy as that guitar riff is, like, it doesn't carry by itself, you know? And so we didn't know if we were strong enough rhythmically to be able to actually bring the heat that this song needed on an album. I sat down right around then and did a full redesign of the guitar part for this song. And so the core of that riff still exists that we've been hearing this whole time. But now this is going to surprise everybody. I changed the key of the song.
You're kidding.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
All right. So,
that's not in your nature.
so anyway,
Porkchop doesn't know what key we're in. Pretty much.
and when he
ever.
figures it out, then I change it. I think it worked out. I know you guys are complaining, but I think it worked out. So I added an acoustic guitar, and one reason for that is I'm rhythmically strong on an acoustic guitar, and when it's missing the drums and I'm listening to this demo, I'm saying maybe if I can throw something in there. When you listen back to the original demos that I was doing, like that song solo acoustic drives, and that's because of my right hand. That's how I play an acoustic. I'm an aggressive guitar player.
You use a strong hand.
And so I wanted to add this acoustic guitar, but I didn't want the two things to mimic each other, right? Like I wanted them to bring their own thing to the table. And so I changed the acoustic guitar. I dropped the top string, so I put it in drop D tuning, which I use a few times on this record. And that is why I changed the key. Changing the key also put it in a different place for me vocally, so I could sing a little bit lower. So anyway, what I'm going to play here is a little isolation. You're going to hear the acoustic guitar first, and then you'll hear the electric guitar come in over the top of it. This is in the chorus, and you're going to hear the two guitars working together. The other thing it did was made the song almost impossible to play live with one guitar. At least we haven't figured this out yet. We're still working on it. But because the acoustic fills in certain parts of the song and the electric fills in other parts of the song, and the acoustic's in a different tuning than the electric, it's almost impossible to do all of that with one piece. So when we tried to arrange it for our last show, we actually went back to the old arrangement of the song, which we struggled a little bit with because, once again, you lose the saxophone when Nolin's playing the drums. So anyway, that's a work in progress. We got to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not a drummer.
When I recorded these guitar parts, this was pre-pedal board. And so in a future episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the pedal board and how I got a pedal board and why I got a pedal board and how I ended up using one. But I have always been a very stubborn guitar person that felt like my guitar amp should provide all of the tone that I need without having to confuse myself by mashing buttons. And so when I recorded this, it's also before I switched back to using a single dynamic microphone on an amp, which is the traditional way to record an amp. So I'm using two condenser mics in stereo in front of my single guitar amp speaker, which makes no sense. All right. And then I'm also getting all the tone just from overdriving my amp. It sounds really good. So now I've got a pedal board and I don't do that as much. But in this song right here, it's all tube amp. The two guitar parts and the percussion were recorded the first week at the same time that I was working on Hand of God. So I recorded all that before you guys actually came in and we started on the recordings in earnest. And once again, like, this is sort of a watershed moment, because what I came up with in that week before you guys came in really let us know that we could do what we wanted to do. There is a difference in approach into how we recorded these songs and how each of us works as a musician. And this was something that I thought was hilarious when I looked back at these final takes, because I can see how many takes we recorded for each track. All right. So when I would record, I would be in the shed by myself at night, and I would do a lot of takes and kind of play these songs over and over because I'm still writing, still arranging, still working all of this out. So Porkchop and Nolin would come in with me on a Tuesday on our band practice day, and we would kind of like you record together, right? And so there would be more influence from all of us on what everybody was playing, but also you guys were doing less takes. Porkchop hates takes, and he always wants me to cut in, and I always tell him, no, just do it over. And the thing is, the bass usually carries all the way through the song. Nolin also hates takes, but mostly that's just because he has to blow into his instrument. And so, especially with a song like Night Terrors, where you're just going nuts the entire time, like doing multiple takes on that song is really going to wear you out. So there's a wide variety of number of takes on the instruments on this tune that I thought was interesting. All right.
Oh, God.
So the acoustic guitar, this is the drop D, the thing that I wrote for this record, but also the instrument that I'm most comfortable with. 5 takes. Least number of takes of any of the instruments on here. Now, what a take is me hitting record. So it may be that I go halfway through the take and stop it. It's not necessarily all the way through each time. It's just how many times I hit record on that track. It also is because I had just rewritten the acoustic guitar, so there's probably hundreds of takes that I did before I ever started recording in the system. For the first saxophone, 8 takes for Nolin to get the final take down. For the second saxophone, 9 takes for Nolin to get the final take down. All right, now once again, you didn't go all the way through all 9 times. That's just the number of times I stopped and started. For the bass, 13 takes. That's pretty solid, right? 13 takes. For the percussion, 15 takes. I was so proud of that when I saw it. I was like, I can't believe I nailed that in 15 takes, knowing that I'm not a drummer or a
None of us
percussionist
are.
in any way, right?
Drummers.
The electric guitar, the riffs, right? 80 takes.
80 takes.
80 takes on
Wow.
the riffs for the song. The guitar solo, are you ready for this? This is a what, 8-bar guitar solo or whatever?
8 bars?
Yeah, whatever. It's short. It's a verse. I played that 148 times.
Who are you?
Could
Phil
you
Smith?
imagine what I would come up with 148 freaking takes?
I bet it would be better than that.
I would have killed both of you.
Who are you, Phil Spector?
I'm telling you, man. So I just sat here at night with nobody here by myself and the amp turned on and just did it. I write solos. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
improvise the way that, I can. I'm not as good at it as Nolin is, but
No, you're pretty good.
I write solos when I do this. And so I was writing it as I was recording it. But I sat here and hit stop and start and did it over and over 148 times to get to that final.
Hey, to be honest, to be fair, if I could do that, I would.
You just ain't got the wind, man. There's no way.
Yeah.
You also don't need to, though.
Yeah.
All right, so percussion. This is the fun stuff. So percussion for this song was this like watershed moment once again in the recording process.
It's PC, pre-Cajon.
Pre-Cajon, that's right. This is when we realized that not only could we play anything with the resources that we had, but we could go places beyond anything that we had ever done live. We could make noises that a drum kit would never accomplish if it was back there. And it was our limitations that made us be creative in this way to find these sounds.
Yeah.
This is also where the idea of the shed being an instrument and a player on the record started to develop.
You can
right?
probably hear it now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you can.
If you're real quiet.
In the echo.
Yeah.
Silence on the radio. That's perfect. The way we were recording and the space required like a lot of guess and check work and troubleshooting, moving mics around. Like, we're figuring all of this out. And once again, we knew how to make this sterile. Like, we knew how to make this sound radio ready. That is not what we wanted. We wanted the space, but we still wanted a high quality sound. And that's why we had to work so hard to find it, because we are in a, what is that, 12-foot ceiling, I guess? Like
I would say.
arched barn ceiling.
Yeah.
It's plywood walls with a little bit of furniture in here. And then there's a loft, which is directly above me. And so this ceiling is actually dropped down a bit. So we're getting all kinds of reflections back on the mic and stuff that we wanted to have for the space, but we also had to figure out how to deal with it.
A dog sometimes.
A dog, sometimes a saw. You never know what you're going to get. Crickets.
Yeah, I'm used to that.
So using found sounds, like, this is not like a revolutionary thing that we did. We're not the first people to ever do this. Porkchop, you talked about this in like the 50s thing of playing on guitar cases and stuff when I was talking about playing on the back of the Porkchop for President guitar. But Tom Waits is like one of my all-time favorite musicians, and the way that he makes records, specifically like his late era records, Mule Variations and Bone Machine, like these found sounds are a huge part of what he does, and he creates sounds that nobody else can create. Not it's in his voice, but it's also in the instrumentation. I heard a great story about Stuart Copeland, and he brought Stuart Copeland, one of the greatest drummers in the history of drums, to come in and play drums with him on his record, and gave him a giant pawn shop marching band bass drum to play on. It was just like, see what you can do with it. I think that's how the story went. So one of the stories that I also read around this time was about the song Big in Japan. And that's a song we used to cover back in the day. One of my
I played
favorites.
it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is a dresser that Tom Waits is playing for the rhythm on that song. And they asked him how many takes he did, and he said 1 because it fell apart before he barely even made it to the end before he destroyed it, you know? And anyway, I love that story and that idea and the sound that song gets, and so that was a huge influence on what we were doing. I also decided to create additional limitations like on myself for the percussion, and limited it to things that I could find in the shed. And for this song, it's a metal filing cabinet that's full of like guitar cables and connectors and other headphones and like other random stuff that just lays around.
It's a two drawer.
Two drawer.
In case you're taking notes at home.
I can't quite.
It's like a
reach it right now.
light blue metal filing cabinet like you can get at the local thrift store. One of the things about limiting myself to what I could play is because it kept me from testing everything. Because anything I beat on, I put a mic in front of it to see what it would sound like. Everything doesn't sound good, and it doesn't sound like it does in real life, right? Like what you hear in real life, like if you plink like a double-walled stainless steel cup, like, to me, there's so much depth, like hearing that through my ear, and when you hear it on a microphone, it just goes ding, you know, like you're not getting all of the sound waves into the mic, no matter how good your mic is. So one of the things about limiting, and this is something that I came up with later, is like, once I found a couple of good sounds, then that was my kit. I didn't have to find different percussion on each song. But this is where I found out that I'm a pretty damn good filing cabinet player. I actually challenged Jonah not too long ago to a filing cabinet off. I think I can play the filing cabinet better than Jonah.
I hear he plays a four drawer cabinet.
4-drawer. Oh,
yeah.
Well, maybe he's got me.
He's the Neil Peart of filing cabinet playing.
You probably get your ass dragged.
That's probably true. One of the cool things though, like this was like a moment, one of the most fun moments for me in the whole recording process. And once again, it's middle of the night. I'm here by myself. I got a click track and a heavy electric guitar and that acoustic guitar going in my ears with a scratch vocal over the top. And I get the microphone set up on the filing cabinet where I think it sounds pretty good, and it starts playing, and I start playing, and I'm hearing it all together in my head, and I feel like this power, like this primal energy in the sound while I'm recording it. Like I got chills like as I'm in the recording process. And it really had such a massive influence on where the album went. So anyway, let's play the isolation of that. Let's dive in. This is the filing cabinet. There's a little bit of music in the background, I think, but this is the famous filing cabinet. So to me, that sounds heavier. Now that it's pushed up in the mix right there, obviously, but that sounds heavier than any drum kit I've ever heard in my entire life. Like it sounds like doom and destruction.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried to do that on Cajon. I can't really replicate it at
And we've
all.
struggled with that a good bit, right? Because we have the Cajon now, and there's certain, not only the way that I play, because I'm not a percussionist, I'm playing to the riff.
Yeah,
and so much of what I'm doing is based on that riff. And once that metronome's out of there, it's hard to follow. But also, like, we've got the heaviest cajon they make, like the bass
Yeah, the big
cajon,
one.
the bottom end, and it still just does not come close to being able to bring that power.
It doesn't bring the doom.
Right, the doom. So the concept continued to develop as we recorded the album. And I mentioned this earlier, like each instrument kind of had its role on the record in my head, right? I don't know if you guys ever thought about this. I think I tried to explain it to you one time, and you both looked at me like I was a madman. But
You are.
yeah, I am. In my head, each instrument sort of had its place, and I would never make an instrument go somewhere for the sake of the concept that it didn't belong in my ears, where it didn't sound good. But at the same time, just to give us a jumping off point, where should we have a sax? Where should we have a guitar solo? Where should we have the harmonica? A lot of that was sort of based on this concept and this idea that these instruments were helping us tell this story. So as far as lead instruments go, I mentioned this last week, and when I listened back, I did a terrible job of explaining it, so I'm just going to try again and do a terrible job one more time. So the harmonica is like the wind, right? So it's like an invisible force. It's not even like existential or external. It's just this invisible force that's kind of, or maybe it's time.
It's just there.
All right, so it's pushing the character through, right? And so the harmonica leads us into the shed, and it leads us back out of the shed. And so this is him taking his mask off, like and taking off the brave face and being vulnerable and all of these things. In the shed, time kind of stands still. So maybe it is time. I think time is better than the wind.
It's like the feather from Forrest Gump.
It is the feather, or the bag from American Beauty. All right. The sax kind of represents these external forces that are bearing down on our protagonist, right? These darker thoughts that are like going through his head. And so the sax kind of comes in and sort of pushes our main character back and sort of represses him as the world inflicts its will on him, right? And then the guitar solos are the protagonist fighting back, like against those external forces. So with Night Terrors, not only did we know Nolin could just shred the saxophone on this song, but also this is the point where time and the wind blows our character through the door, and he reaches isolation, and everything falls down on top of him. And so we wanted this huge saxophone sound like on this song. It is not that, once again, I mentioned the Stooges, like there are very few examples of wild avant-garde type sax coming in over heavy distorted electric guitars in pop music, right?
Godzilla would be a good.
Godzilla is a good example. But anyway, so we wanted this big sax sound, and then Nolin, like, he has these sort of levels. Nolin will do what you ask him to do if you give him the direction that you want to go. And so Nolin has like smooth crooner sax style that he can nail. And then he's got like badass bluesy sax style that he can nail, and like a more like complex style that he can throw in there. And then there's muy caliente, right? So he can go mild, he can go medium, he can go hot.
I think what I told you is, tell me to go ape shit, and I'll go ape shit.
That's right. And this is Ape Shit Song. Like, this is the one where that's what we wanted. The problem is, we had no idea how to record a saxophone.
Yeah.
All right? No clue. And once again, you go on YouTube, you read all the blogs, and they'll tell you all the different ways to do it. And when you listen back in your ears, it's not the sound you want, right?
It's too pretty.
It's too pretty. We wanted thick, like we wanted the body of the sax. We wanted it present, like in your ears, but not clean.
No.
And we wanted like a touch of that rawness. And the other problem that we ran into a lot is just hearing your fingers. Like a lot of times the clacking of the keys overpowers the actual sound.
Yeah, they get the moving.
So we had a couple of failed attempts of recording the sax for this song, and then we decided, all right, these they had to be throwaway takes because they just didn't sound good. There's nothing I could do with them. So Nolin and I took one day outside of our usual Tuesday, and we came in, just the two of us, with the sole purpose of figuring out how to record a saxophone on a record. Nolin, I think your first idea was, after we had failed a couple of times already to record it in a traditional way, we wanted like a live sound. So Nolin said, what if we run it through like a PA speaker? What if we do it in a way like we're playing live?
I see that with my fellow peers, and they go out and they busk, you know, And what they have is just a little speaker and a microphone.
Throw a little reverb on there.
And throw some reverb on there, and you'll sound like, any Phil Collins record.
Absolutely. So
He
we
can't
used my acoustic guitar amplifier and ran a dynamic microphone into that Nolin played into just like it was a live show. Mm-hmm. And then we mic'd the amplifier.
Yeah.
And then added a little bit of reverb to it to try to get this live sound.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Like, it wasn't what we wanted. It was fun to test it out. And Nolin did a whole take on it and smoked the take. Like, the take was incredibly good. And so even though we were going to move forward and try different recording techniques, we kind of stuck it in our back pocket. So let's play that take. I think this is actually in the mix. So this is going to be a single saxophone in the mix too, which is different than what you get on the final record. But you can hear, even with a great take from Nolin, how that sax works against those against the distorted guitars and against that filing cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Great take from Nolin, and I think in a lot of circumstances we could have looked at that and said that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But good enough ain't good enough, as we've already mentioned here. And so
What I love about Dustin though is like, I can do like, you ask me to do something, I can do it. But Dustin, he'll sit there and say, I think you can do a little bit better.
Yeah. And sometimes that's irritating as hell.
He'll have a little shitting grin on his. I think he can do a little bit.
Let's
better.
try that. Let's try that one more time.
He's a producer at heart.
Yeah, for real. And it's like, he knows me. He knows it takes a lot of energy to do crap like that,
And there are times on this record where we had to say, let's try that next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Nolan's blown his lungs out. He's giving us everything he has.
I'm about to pass the freak out.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to say this. Like, I haven't been playing a lot of saxophone.
That's right.
Before we started working on this project.
Yeah, I mean, we took a good couple of years off, like as a band, without playing live or anything, sort of as we molded after Willie Booger stopped, and then molded into Fall Down Trees, and then brought Nolin back in. So you weren't at full speed when we started.
I was putting up little hints of like, I play like some Christmas music, I play a little clip of me doing a little jazz, whatever.
But that ain't the same as full shows and band practices every week.
Yeah, so like when you throw a microphone down my bell, which is the part of the saxophone, it kind of shakes me up a little bit. It's like, dang, I'm really that loud?
Yeah. And look, also you're hearing so much of the sax gets lost in the cacophony of the rest of the music.
Yeah.
Like the overtones and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're playing it completely acoustic, or when you got a mic in there and you're listening in headphones, you're hearing all of that stuff.
I can hear everything I mess up. I can hear everything I did good. And it's a weird thing to hear. It's a weird thing to hear yourself talk on a microphone. If you guys
don't do it, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are used to it. But like to hear yourself play an instrument and then come back and listen to it, it's a little weird.
Absolutely. It's definitely like it's a whole different way of hearing yourself. And I think what you're talking about, most people have experienced that, where they hear themselves on a video or like in their voicemail or something.
Do I really sound like that?
Somebody said I sounded like a hay bale. I didn't think I had a southern accent until I heard myself in a video.
Bro, dude, yeah, I'm very this podcast has got me shook.
So when we after that take, like, not only were we not thrilled with the sound quality of the way that we had mic'd it, but also even with Nolin like going full blast, and the sax still didn't have enough ass to stand up to that electric guitar in that filing cabinet. Like, it just did not push the song the same way.
It's like, if you hear me play live in person, like, it's just me and you standing a couple feet apart, it's got plenty of ass.
Yeah, it'll blow your ears out.
Yeah, but like
trying to capture that.
Yeah. So we're trying to capture that in an album. And an album, I don't really want to step on nobody's feet, really.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna play my ass off because you told me to.
That's right, muy caliente. Well, we finally found our mic placement that night. We put the condensers in stereo and vertical up and down the sax, And we actually moved, one of the things that we figured out is we moved the mics underneath the loft, so there wasn't quite as much space as there were in the big area of the shed. Less reverberation, less room noise. And then, even though every video we watched said stick the mic in the bell of the sax, we moved Nolin about 3 feet back, and that's where we really got like the best sound. And we got clear tone, we got the body of the sax, but less of the finger noise.
Yeah.
And what we would do, and I know this was fun too, is Nolin would stand there and like doodle on the saxophone, and I'd say, take a step forward. Take another step forward.
Oh, yeah.
Take 2 steps back. And we just moved until we got it. We did this every take on the sax that we ever did until he was in the exact right place to get the sound that we wanted. Once we got the new mic set up, Nolin gave me another take all the way through and smoked it again, right? And it sounded so freaking good. And once again, it's a long song. Nolan's playing the entire song, right? It's all improv. Like, nothing's written anywhere in here. There are little motifs here or there that you bring around, but he's playing in between my vocals all the way throughout, full speed ahead, improvising all the way through. It takes a lot of wind out of him, and doing full takes, like, especially, like, that's enough to, like, to wear you out. So we went in and listened to that take and had the exact same experience, right? Of like, this is a great take, and it's still not pushing through the way that we want it to push through. But let's play a couple of clips back to back right here, and you can kind of hear the difference in the sound quality of the sax takes, but you can also hear Nolan's playing. I think this is completely isolated. So this is going to be the first one going through the amplifier. First of all, that opening, like, you holding that note forever, man, that's freaking intense. As far as sound quality goes, you can hear a thinness to that. You can hear the reverb that's like coming out of the amplifier. This is going to be the second one, what I called short mic, but this is when we actually got it mic'd the way that we wanted it.
Okay.
So what you're hearing in the background on that one, or the effect, is a little bit of delay, which I put on afterwards. But you can hear how much thicker the saxophone sounds and how much more body like there is to the mix. But once again, did not solve the problem. No matter how good Nolin played it, how hot he played it, the quality of the recording, not enough ass to like keep up with the other instruments in the song. And then I'm sitting here and we're like playing these tracks.
He gets this
like
grin on
flipping
his
back
face.
and forth. It was an accident. So, I'm like muting one and then hitting play, and then muting the other and then hitting play, and then I hit play with both of them unmuted, and they played at the exact same time. Right, what you just heard, right at the beginning of the song where they both come in. I didn't see it coming, and then I heard it. And yeah, that shit-eating grin that Nolin is referencing definitely crossed my face.
He just looked at me and laughed, and I thought I'd done something wrong. I was like, God, what did I do wrong? You're a producer. You're doing producing type things, and you're looking at me and you're grinning at me. It's like, what did I do either wrong or right?
But what it is it sounded like nothing I had ever heard, and it was weird, and it was out there, and it was wrong. And we should not do it. Like, it was almost like we were being naughty, right? We shouldn't. And we listened to it a few times, and there was a debate long after this, like way into the mixing of the record of like, should we leave this like this? Is this too much? Are we overshadowing the rest of the song? Like, what are we doing? But that initial moment, I'll never forget, where I heard those two saxophones going side by side. So I've got them isolated out here at the beginning of the song, and you can hear them next to each other.
You can file that in your filing cabinet over there under S for shocking.
Shocking, absolutely. It was like, It was really exciting.
I saw you over there doodling on your computer.
I think the coolest part is because I don't know that it would have worked if we'd recorded both takes the same way.
Yeah.
Right? Like if both of them had just gone into the mic.
Yeah. They're two different.
There's like a natural EQ difference because of the different ways that we recorded them, and it makes them stand out against each other. But
it actually harmonizes at one point.
Yeah.
It does.
Which is freaking weird.
It is weird. So the takes are improvised, but they're definitely like similar motifs that you use in each one. And so the parts where they are playing the exact same note, like that opening note, like there is like I don't know if dissonance is the right word.
Yeah, it's dissonance.
There's like a tension there as both of them are playing, and you can't tell it's two instruments. It just seems like one instrument
like one.
with distortion on it or something, right? And then they break apart from each other. And when they like break apart, there's like this release, and both of them go off like in different directions in this really interesting way.
I didn't know I got so soulful on that first take.
Yeah, it was good, man.
I hit a little bit of blues on there.
There are also serendipitous moments like throughout, and we found this in recording. I think a good example is when we did the solos for maybe Run Run Rudolph, and it sounded like you and I were playing at the same time and copying each other's licks when we recorded them.
We got to do that more
separate.
often.
But these things happen kind of like things fitting into the concept where it's just serendipity. And on this one, there are moments throughout those saxophone takes where they break apart and come back together almost like we wrote those parts, right? Like almost like you intended to do it and intended for it to work that way. Or like it's two sax players playing at the same time and playing off of each other. There's this one spot, and this is one of my absolute favorite moments on the entire record. And I catch it every time it comes through, where the two saxophones break apart and then land back like right on top of each other.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't.
All right, so here we go. I just
same note.
Yeah. And it's everything else they're doing throughout that passage is different and like working against each other, and then right there at the end they land on that
I think a lot
moment.
of it is just me knowing like measures.
Right.
Cause like
and where the vocals are going to come in, right?
Yeah, and cuz like I've worked with like a lot of commercial like music people. They don't speak like like you guys, you say we're going to come in on the verse. We're going to come in after the verse, and we'll come in after the chorus. I'm so used to being told, we're going to come in on measure 43
right.
on the 8th note.
Well, that's always a part of it, is like you have to, because we don't talk like that. And so with that song, you've played it enough live where you're playing around my vocals. You know where all of my vocals are, like within the song.
And I actually like that song. And that helps a lot.
That does help. And that's a big part of like learning a song with us too, is you just getting used to where everything else is happening, especially with original tunes where there's no like previous like thoughts about it. Mm-hmm. So with most of the songs like on this record, there's tons of subtraction, right? Like that's one of the big things we did is like throw it at the wall, see what sticks, delete it, pull it out of there, let's trim it back, cut the fat, that whole thing. This song is absolutely the exception. Yeah. In this instance, we decided to leave both parts in. Let's keep them both. It's adding to the overall feel of the song. Vocals were a similar instance, right? Like we had a good take from the initial setup with the stereo condensers before I went back and recut everything in the fall. And this is one of the songs like I worried about. I was like, am I going to be able to do a vocal take as good as the one that we already got down on the record, right? Yeah. Like, am I going to be able to nail this again? Mm-hmm. The first take that I did when I cut this song the first time was really straightforward, just like a live performance. It's the way that I'd always done it, and then I added Porkchop's backing vocals behind it. I was just the one that was singing them, but it was the same way that he sang them. So this is like the initial mix downs with the first vocal take.
Cities crumble and their statues fall. I wake up screaming at the bedroom wall. The well-intentioned and the rule of law. Moral authority will either
felt really good about that vocal take. All right. I played a joke on Porkchop there. So most of this album, we did full takes, right? And this was a thing that I was a pain in the butt about. Or at least did like full verses or full passages. But there are a few points on this record that I went in post and edited things out. And that bass walk down at the end of that guitar solo is one of those things.
I'm glad you did.
I don't even know if you remember playing that.
As soon as
You better put it back in.
as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely went in
That's
and
the
just
best part of the song.
I chopped that sucker off.
I liked it a lot.
So with vocals, similar to the sax, I felt like the regular lead vocals didn't have enough ass to cut through the heaviness of the music, right?
Yeah.
Just like with the saxophone. And I couldn't get a take when I was recutting the vocals that was as good as the one that you just heard that I cut with the condenser microphones.
Mm-hmm.
And if that one wasn't good enough, then the new ones definitely weren't good enough, and I didn't have anything that was good enough. So this is where I really started like pushing outside of my vocal, what I usually do vocally. This is where my next Tom Waits influence comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start like playing with different voices. And I do this when I sing, right? Like I have different ways that I hold my mouth or my throat or whatever to achieve different effects. Easy, Nolin. Don't get too excited over there. So with this one, I wanted something that sort of matched the energy and the theme of the song better than just singing it straightforward like a rock singer. So I recorded a lead vocal that was higher than the original lead, right? And so what you call lead can be different depending on the song. I'm not going to get too technically deep, mainly because I don't understand what the hell I'm talking about. But with this, where my lead was and what you just heard, this is going to be, I think, the third over that, right? And I'm using sort of a pinched voice like a Tom Waits or a Captain Beefheart, where I'm pinching the back of my throat to get this sort of sound. So this is the high lead that I tried to do.
News don't know me like it used to do. I can't stand to watch the evening news. Charlie Patton singing me the blues. Can't keep the needle seated in the groove. Can't keep the needle.
You know, I got my voice. And look, that sounded cool, right? Like
Yeah.
it sounded different. It added something to the song. Still didn't accomplish what I wanted it to accomplish. So I decided to try a different thing. And I went below where, so I think this would actually be the lower fifth. I went below where the initial lead was for this sort of bass lead.
News don't know me like it used to do. I can't stand to watch the evening news. Charlie Patton singing me the blues. Can't keep the needle seated in the groove.
And once again, that sounded pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Like it's different, it's adding texture, but very much like the sax, it's like all of this is good, but it's still not like hitting the way that I want it to hit. But at this point, I'd already had an experience that was very exciting with the sax, so I decided to give it a try on the vocals. So that is where I decided to play those two vocals together.
News don't know me like it used to do. I can't stand to watch the evening news. Charlie Patton singing me the blues. Can't keep the needle seated in the groove.
And just like with the sax, like it adds a tension, it adds a weirdness and kind of a uniqueness that like hit me. Like when I heard those two together, I was like, that's it. Like that's the thing. And it matches the saxophone perfect and creates, once again, a song that we can't play live because we don't have two saxes and we don't have two voices and we don't have two guitars. All right, so we went back and forth with the vocals too. Like, should we keep them? Should we do both? Should we go back to the condenser mic take and keep the straight vocals? Like, what should we do? But just like with the sax, in the end, it was like, let the song be weird. Like, let's let it be weird. And that kind of carried us through the rest of these recordings, and we let those songs be weird too. And I think that was a huge
It gave us a whole lot of effort, you know. It's like
It did.
It sounded cool to us. So
Yeah,
it's
if we're gonna put this out like this, then let's just do it our way the whole rest of the record, right? When I was recording those bass vocals, it's really hard to like find the right note to start singing on, right? Like with each line. So bass notes are farther apart than higher notes based on how sound waves work and what you have to do with your voice. Like you have to change your throat more to go between notes on the bottom end of the scale than the higher top end. And because of that, I was having a really hard time like getting that hitting that first note, right? And so what without going like a little flat or sharp or whatever. And so what I started doing is I would go, like that, like in key, the beat right before I would start singing. And that would let me get my voice in my ear in the right place so I could hit that first note right. And I did it, and I went through a take, and I heard it in the way that it like lined up and added like this texture to the song. I was like, man, that sounds really cool too. So I ended up doing it intentionally and leaving it in. There's a Vic Chestnut song where he does that, and before we did the podcast, I tried to go back and find it, but I couldn't remember which one. That was in my head. I knew it was a thing that I'd heard somebody else do. So once again, not a thing that I absolutely remembered, but so hats off to Vic Chestnut. But anyway, let me play that for you too. So, yeah, once again, another one of those moments where it was like I'm doing a thing to just try to get through the recording, and then you listen back and you're like, oh, that actually sounds really cool. Leave it in.
It adds a lot to it. And not to be too pretentious, but if you're trying to read into things, even though it was accidental, I mean, it was on purpose, but you found it accidentally, it's almost like it reminds me of something people do when they meditate.
Oh, very much.
And in this song, you're meditating on calamity.
That's very true. I did not think about it like that.
See, I did good at English 101.
See,
I can
once
read into
again,
stuff.
If you don't have the concept up front, you can always create the concept afterwards, right?
Man, I did really, really good in presentations in English class.
All right. So as we mentioned in the last episode, like we were learning how to do these harmonies as we're recording. Nolin had his little lesson with me in here that one night, and then there's something that we brought to Porkchop too, and we tried to sing them, and then I started kind of doing the harmonies on my own, mainly because I'm the stronger singer. Having one voice for one character in the shed made sense with the concept
and time.
Yeah, the fact that I'm in here by myself at night
sing
and can really work it out, right?
Yeah.
Can like really get it right. And when we did the original takes with the condensers in stereo that ended up getting ditched, I just sang the harmony just like you sang it when we did it live. Mm-hmm. But after I changed the leads, that didn't work anymore because where you were singing harmony is about where I went when I created the higher lead.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, the things that were happening before, just like, and we changed the key, right? With something else that happened. So the things that were working before weren't working now. And also, I'm using a dynamic mic. I've got good headphones now, and so I can hear better, and so I'm tightening everything up. And so I'm having, like, sitting here in the shed, which one, like, where is the harmony? What do I need to put on here? And so I just did them all, right? So I went through and figured out how to make the lead vocals work together in the chorus, because that wasn't a natural progression either. I actually went lower with the leads instead of going higher like I did when I was the only voice on the song. So you'll hear that in the clip in just a second, is how the leads sort of drop down when they go into the chorus instead of going up, which is the natural way to do a chorus, right? Usually when you sing a chorus, you project more and you go higher and you make it more intense, which we did. We just did it a different way. But it's kind of a band thing, right? Like when the band would play, it wasn't uncommon that the lead voice that was singing the verses became a harmony voice when it came to the chorus, right? Mm-hmm. Where they would trade places based on where somebody's voice worked better.
Yeah.
They weren't beholden to, I'm singing lead and you're the backup singer, because everybody sang lead in that band. And so after I figured out how to adjust those twin lead vocals and dropping down, like I was saying, I recorded a third harmony and a fifth harmony. So that's one stage higher, 2 stages higher, and then an octave. I don't guess it's a harmony if it's an octave, right? But I went
it's a harmony.
It's a falsetto vote. Like I completely changed the way that I sang to create that last octave up from where the lead is.
And octaves a harmony.
So, like with most of the song, after I did a third, I did a fifth, I did the high octave, I had the 2 lead vocals, so I had 5 vocal tracks, and I'm like mixing them up in different ways just for hours on end, trying them. Does it sound better with this one? Does it sound better with that one? What if I add these 2? What if I take out the low lead vocal? What if I take out the middle lead vocal? Like all of these different ways. I tried them just about every different way. And like with this song, pretty much all the way through, finally it was leave them all in, right?
Yeah,
Like,
just
let's have them all.
F it.
In this clip that I'm about to play, you can hear the first line of the chorus change in the way the lead vocals are coming in. For the second line of the chorus, you'll hear the third come in, so you'll hear that one added. For the third line, you'll hear me add the fifth, and the final line, I add the high octave. Now, on the album, they all play simultaneously, but I just did this to hopefully make it a little easier for you to hear what it is that we're talking about.
Self-righteous fury leads to moral defeat, and we're falling out of love with everything. Falling out of love with everything. Falling out of love with everything. Everything but you.
Sounds pretty cool, honestly. I kind of
I
like
think
it.
you actually sent me that, or you sent us both that in the group chat. I was like, you got some women. It's like, who are these women singing on this track? And it's still kind of like, people still say that.
I do. I've actually heard that several times. It's like, who's the woman that's singing that song with you?
I thought it was Emmy Lou. I was like, you can't have your daughter singing this song.
Though she did come in and sing on some later ones.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. We'll
those fit a little better
Man,
than Night Terror.
to figure all that out, you about need a math equation. You might have to study Pythagoras to figure
Pythagoras, yeah.
Yeah, there's 12 octaves.
So I don't know how often, like in heavy music, 5-part harmony is used. The band that I kept thinking of when I was doing this and like when I was hearing it is like, I almost hesitate to say it because I'm just not that good, but yeah, it's Queen.
Yeah.
And like that was what I kept hearing, is like it added this element to a heavy song that is surprising but fits like perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
think about the way that, you know, I don't know how they arranged the harmonies and how much of that was Freddie Mercury overdubbing or what, but
Yeah.
you think of some of those songs with those massive guitar riffs and those vocal harmonies, and that's kind of what it reminded me
It
of.
works.
The leave it in approach to the song also changed the way that I like mix the record. So this is something else that shifted. Up to this point, I was trying really hard to keep the production like almost, I'm going to say, in a pretentious way, like as a pompous jerk.
Yeah,
I was
'cause
trying
you
to
are.
keep, because I am. I was trying to keep the production sounding like live, like we were recording it live in studio, is the vibe that I wanted. And I wanted lots of dynamics, and I wanted the space, and I know I've talked about all of that, but that means avoiding compressors. And so what a compressor does is it kind of smashes the sound waves down, and it has its benefits, right? And that's most of the music you hear on the radio now is highly compressed.
Yes.
It makes the bass really push through more, but it squishes the space out of it. And so I was refusing in the initial mixes to use any compressors at all. And I was also really trying to avoid any kind of effect. And what that did, like, I really wanted to get a good representation of the sound going in the microphone. And I wanted it to sound like we were playing it live in studio. This is very much like a Neil Young, David Briggs style of recording, right? Which are some of my favorite records in the world. Those guys are sitting in rooms and just getting this incredible, incredible sound. But it makes everything really, really hard to mix, like it does. And it's the opposite of the way every YouTuber out there and every blog and everything tells you how to make a professional sounding record. I was okay with that difficulty to get the sound that I wanted. But when I went back and I re-recorded all of the vocals with the dynamic mic, and it made everything too clean, right? And that's one of the reasons I didn't use the dynamic mic in the beginning, is because everything was so clean, so present, you weren't getting as much of that sound. And that's what happened when I brought it back. It eliminated that space. So one thing I started doing was adding like small amounts of reverb onto my vocals. So I like lightened up on my rule that I wasn't going to use those effects, but because I was so staunch in that rule early on, my hand was very light when I would add it, and I was very particular about how much was going to be on there. With the backing vocals, even though I'm doing all of the voices, and you would think that would make them like really, really tight, you think about like blood harmonies, and the reason that works so well is because their voices are so similar and they think similarly and all of this. If one person's doing it, they're going to be exact, but I'm not that kind of singer. And so with the 5-part harmonies, what you would hear is like in one part of the song, the third would really be loud, and in the next part you couldn't hear it at all. And everything sounded so different. There was so much variation. And so because of that, I started to add a little bit of compression. And what that did was that evened out all of those, it reduced dynamics, but it evened out all of those volume levels. And when that happened, it brought them together and made them really tight. And it made me less scared of using that throughout the record because, once again, I was being very light-handed when I was doing it. Another thing that I did, and I figured out on this song, is if I added a little more reverb to the backing vocals, it made them sound like people standing farther away from the mic than the people that are singing the lead vocals. So that was another cool trick I came up here. Because I used all of the effects as a last resort, and I was really light with them, even when I did use them, we still focused on getting a really good sound going in, because when we recorded everything, we didn't think we were going to use any of that at all. But I still had the ability to sort of clean and tighten everything up at the end when I was doing the final mixes. And I really think that balance in the production is one of the things like I'm most proud of on the record. I think that we kind of achieved, like, it sounds real and it sounds live and you have space in there, but also it sounds professional and it sounds clean. It doesn't sound like a record made in a shed, particularly, right? Or we don't wear that on our sleeve.
But it does in the best way.
In the best way, right. We don't wear it on our sleeve like the 90s, DIY indie guys that recorded on tapes, but it still has like that earthiness to it, but at the same time, high quality sound and professionalism that I really appreciate. I also think the same can be said for the performances, right? Like, we didn't sweat a flub note here or there.
Yeah.
Background noise we didn't worry about. Imperfections weren't a thing that we were focused on in any way. And you were talking about like me and how I would ask for another take and ask for another take. What I was thinking about the entire time, and you guys too, right? You guys took the exact same approach, is like, it's not how perfect was my take. It was, how did it feel? What was the energy of the take? Like, did
I do my best?
Right. Absolutely. And are we getting our point across with it? And so looking at that the same way, I think we got the most out of the music by not instead of like dialing everything back to make sure we got it perfect, we let it frickin' fly to make sure we got that energy across. Alrighty, so we've blabbed on for almost 2 hours this time, boys.
Wow.
So I think what we'll do now is if you've made it this far into the recording, we're going to play you the final mastered take of Night Terrors from the Fall Down Trees record of the same name.
Cover your ears.
Charlie Patton singing me the blues. And keep the needle seated in the groove. Gotta pull my bone out in the street. I kicked the dog that tangled up my feet. I beat a man that used to wear a sheet. Self-righteous fury leads to moral defeat. Falling out of love.
there's definitely a lot of Leave It In on that song. And like listening to the full recording right there, one thing that I noticed, and I mentioned like Leave It In is this song like entirely where so much of the record is cutting back. But I'm talking about more of like leaving the imperfections in there. There's so many spots where one of us like overshoots the stop, right? Or like there's one spot, I think it's right before the solo, where there's like a double bass bump, boom, like that. Like little stuff like that. Or even the very end of the song, you hear me, like I've stopped the guitar, but I like tap it against the desk or something, and you get like a little bit of a ring. And all of that got left in. Like I didn't take any of that. I took the bass walk out, but I didn't take any of that stuff out because I think that looseness and that kind of jagged, like back and forth nature adds to the tension that song has throughout. And I think that's really great. Another thing in that song that I didn't mention before is the pan at the beginning of the guitar solo when I do the pick slide.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
A pick slide is not a thing that I do. Right? That is not a thing that I have ever implemented, ever. I'm not even sure that I'm doing it the right way. But when I did it, I think I went through something like 8 guitar picks.
Yeah.
As I was just eating them up every time I did it. And I would sit one pick on the desk in front of me. So when I did the pick slide, I would tear that pick up and then I would throw it away and grab the other one so I had a clean pick to play the solo with. And that was, when it comes to like editing flourishes and making production like a part of the sound, I avoided that as much as I possibly could, except for in that one moment where I went full Joe Walsh and had that pick slide go all the way from the left to the right and then back around to the middle for the guitar solo.
It sounded freaking badass.
It does. And when you hear it like in the car or something, like it jumps out at you when it happens. My other final thought kind of on this song is one great thing about this record that I've really appreciated is all of the feedback that we've gotten from people, and just about everyone tells us that a different song is their favorite song. Yeah. And just about every song on the album has been somebody's favorite up to this point. I think except for Night Terrors. And
it's my favorite.
That's exactly where I was going, Nolin, is it's my favorite too. And I think just because so much creativity went into it, it was so much fun to frickin' play it, we got exactly the point across, and it's not a single. Like, it's not a song that's meant to make you feel good in any way. It is tension. It is uncomfortableness. It is jagged. It's weird. It's like all of these things that we found in the recording process that we had tried to get live and had never fully accomplished up to that point. And so it is the best example of a song that became so much more in the studio than it was before.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favorite tune, of course, because it's the experience. You know, just me being in this, well, I say shed, but it's more like a home.
Yeah. I mean, I live in it, so.
But, like, you know, when you get Dustin giving you, like, side eyes and snarky smiles, you think, you know you're doing something good.
One thing to note is the way that my desk is positioned, I have the ability to, like, stare at the screen and block where you guys don't see but the side of my face, and I'm not looking at you. And there are definitely moments, like, throughout this record where something really cool was happening, and I was trying real hard to keep staring at the screen and not, like, break whatever energy was in the air.
Yeah, and it's like, you see that, and it's like, I've played for, like, you know, I've played in front of big crowds, you know, before. I'm a jazz musician. Like, I play jazz music, and I've come up with some crazy solos, and I'll come up with stuff. But to see, like, one of these people, like, that sees me weekly, like, break a little bit of a smile, I was like, okay, I think I'm cooking,
doing something right.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that for me, it was because this is something that we do when we go out to play, and we've always tried to do this when we make a record, or the idea of making a record. We always have talked about trying to be able to record something that we can replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this goes totally against that what is our ethos, really.
Absolutely.
And I think pretty much the rest of the record, in one shape, it might not sound exactly like the record, but we can perform those songs. This is the exception, unless we get
Modern Prometheus too. I'd say.
modern. Yeah. You need a whole.
We'll get there.
We'll get
You
there.
have to haul my ass off in a stretcher.
But like the idea, I wouldn't say we were snobby about it, but it's something that we've always tried to do. And even in
it's like me not using a pedal board, right? Like
it's the
that
same
kind of
idea.
Yeah.
And even in the other bands I play in, we don't do any studio tricks, because we want to be able to play these songs so people can hear them. If they request a song, they'll get as close as you can get. And that's just a preference that you and I have. I know, Dustin, but this one was really satisfying to record. Knowing we're adding all these different vocal parts, double saxes. We've got two completely different. We've got an acoustic and electric guitar with one guitar player. We're playing a filing cabinet.
Right.
I mean,
5-part harmony.
All of these things that are really not in our wheelhouse, never have been. I mean, and look, we enjoy all kinds of music, but for me, this put me, not necessarily playing the bass part, but seeing all this come together is outside of my normal comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And to hear the end product was just super satisfying. I mean, to hear all of that happy accidents come together. I accidentally played these saxophone parts together, and boom! I mean, it changes the whole thing. So for me, as far as the creativity goes, like I said, it's not a single, it's not radio ready, but as an artist, I mean, it's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, we're like the backwoods idiot savant Beatles.
we hit our Beatles going into the Abbey Road studio.
Don't get me
way
started.
Too early.
Don't get me started on the UK. I love you, Trev.
Yeah, I mean,
you about the only one.
I have to completely agree. Like, this is the moment where we found a creative stride in the studio, and that made this record so much more fun to make than if we had done what we had tried to do every other time we've ever been in a studio, which is exactly what you said, recreate what we do live.
Yeah.
In this instance, we were so short, we didn't have a choice, right? We were short on musicians and had decided we were moving forward short on musicians. And so all of the different things that we were short on a drummer. We were short on any type of actual drums. We were short on sound treatment in a studio. We were in a shed, short on talent, like short on all of these things, and they made us so much more creative in the end. And I mean, I agree. I think that's why it's my favorite song, is because you see a level of creativity from us as a band that you would never get to see live.
And I think it bled over to the other songs, even though we may not mention direct influence. I think, as you said, when we got this song done, in the process of doing it, I think the creativity bled over to the way we recorded the rest of the album.
Absolutely. And not just that, but learning too, right? Like, not just where to put the mic for the sax.
That's where we learned how to mic me.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you folks for listening to Does It Make a Sound? We'll be back in a couple of weeks with episode 3, Shadow, where we're going to get even deeper into space and backing vocals and kind of back to a more minimalist approach to making the music. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and review the show on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can stay up to date with Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees by following Fall Down Trees on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. There's probably others. Links are in the description of the podcast, so go down there and you can follow them. As independent artists, we need champions to spread the word about our work. So, if you find value in the music that you're hearing, this podcast, please share it with your friends on your social pages too. That's more valuable to us than any advertising we could ever afford. And I promise we will forever be in your debt if you do it. Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees are proud partners with Guttersville Records, a collective of independent artists working together to be heard in this noisy digital space. So please like and subscribe to Guttersville channels too, and make sure to listen to all of the music coming out of our little indie record label. We appreciate you listening to the show, and we appreciate all of your support. Fellers, I hope y'all have a good rest of the day, and I look forward to catching up with y'all next week. And folks, you'll get another episode in a couple of weeks too. For Porkchop Branch, for Nolin McAlister, I'm Dustin Owens.
Timber!